Toole Time, Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Timon. We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line, the number one RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we are talking about 500,000 more sellers in the market than buyers right now. But we're going to talk about what the headlines actually mean here momentarily. Wawa. I don't even know how to group them. Convenience store giant, I guess, is probably a good way to look at it. They've sold a few sites. Sheetz is invading their territory. This is very hotly contested. I think you probably have some good perspective on this, being from Lancaster. Mm-hmm. And there's also a new Pennsylvania driving law in effect this week, and we're going to be talking about some incredible new listings coming to the market as well. So if you get some value out of this, or you like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with our team and talk to Sarah in particular, she's got many happy listeners that are clients of hers that have she's been able to really help. You can do that with the link in the comments. So let's start off with this Redfin study, Sarah. So before we even get into the data, the headline here is there's 500,000 more sellers than buyers right now. Do you believe that?
No.
Tell me more.
Just because you still have, while like inventory is up and there are listings coming to the market, in most cases it's pretty common to still have multiple offers for those properties. Mm-hmm. And buyers that still can't quite find what they're looking for.
I totally agree with you. And that's why you got to be really careful with this headline. So the headline factually is accurate. Redfin had some convoluted math that they used. Here's their methodology. The number of sellers in the market is active listings or total number of homes actively for sale at any point during a given month. Fine. That's easy.
Sure.
Here's where it gets a little hairy, because there's not a similar metric measuring how many buyers are actively in the market. We developed one. We took active listings and pending sales from the MLS to estimate what fraction of homes on the market will sell within a given month. We estimated what fraction of buyers on the market will find a home within a given month using Redfin data on the typical time from first tour to purchase. The ratio of these two data points approximates the ratio of buyers to sellers in the market. We then multiplied the ratio by the number of active listings to get the estimated total number of buyers in the market. Note that our estimate of buyers is not based on Redfin traffic or customer acquisition data, and the purpose of this analysis is to measure the number of buyers and sellers as a whole. All metrics that go into our calculation of the number of buyers and sellers in the market are seasonally adjusted. Are you buying that?
No, wait, and I was trying to follow it, but I don't know that I quite did. So they took that makes sense that you take the number of listings that are up for the month. Mm-hmm. That's straightforward. Then they took the average time that it takes a buyer to get under contract.
Yeah, first tour to purchase. Yeah.
First tour to purchase. But they didn't give us what that was.
No.
And then multiplied it by the number of listings.
Yeah, so they took a ratio of these two, and that approximates the ratio of buyers to sellers. I don't know how you figure out how many buyers in the market.
Right.
Like how do you actually do it? I mean, you can't look at pre-approvals because people get pre-approved with more than one bank, and that data is probably protected. You can't look at mortgage applications because that only happens when they bought a home. Mm-hmm. There's no way to know how many offers are out there. So, and you're trying to follow this, right? You know what you're doing. It's because it's not followable. I don't even know if that's a word. And it's a dangerous headline. I mean, I've had local news outlets contact me about this article, and when you look at even let's say they did the math right, take a guess where all the cities are that are considered a buyer's market compared to a balanced or a seller's market.
Down south.
Yep.
Florida.
Yep.
Maybe some of the, I don't want to say Midwestern, but Colorado.
Mm-hmm. Colorado's on the list. Nevada's there. So you got the idea. These are places that were overbuilt during the pandemic. And
Texas.
Texas is in there. That was the other big one.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Philadelphia pops up on the list. The city of Philadelphia, they're considered a balanced market. And I am clear the city's different than the suburban counties. Yep. So that's right. And then Montgomery County is one of the top 3 sellers markets on here where they're calling a 38% differential between active buyers versus active sellers. So, and all the cities that they had Baltimore, Maryland, Providence, Rhode Island, and then they had counties like Nassau County, New York, very similar to Montgomery County being right outside. So this data is very skewed, and what I get nervous about, you're working with a buyer, and they say, "Well, there's all these sellers in the market right now, Sarah. What am I going to do?" I mean, how do you deal with that as an agent? And inventory is rising. I want to be clear. I mean, we're seeing a 16.2% jump compared to this week last year in active listings in our marketplace. So there is inventory growing. How do you combat that? Because this is a very dangerous headline for consumers.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think if they're coming from a place of like, we found a home that we like, but we know that there's more sellers out there. So I can, write an offer that maybe isn't as competitive as I would have without this headline. I would have at that point probably already reached out to the listing agent to kind of get tabs on what's, what the status is, offers in, yada, yada, to kind of take a temperature on what the deal is and then kind of like advise from there. There are homes where you could be the only offer in. There's others where you're competing against quite a few other buyers. So you need to be aware of that, and you need to plan accordingly.
I think that's really good data. And then what you also need to know is that for every home that's sitting on the market, there's also some that are selling with multiple offers. And that's going to happen in any kind of market. And I think this is where this data gets very dangerous. Like you should not be paying attention to this if you're, and the headlines are the killer, right? I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. Because when you dive into the data, the article tells you something totally different, and that's a real problem. So then you look at like the Zillow data that comes out. So Zillow's got a little bit of a different metric. They have what they call a heat index, and it's a map where they color code things, where they go from like a medium blue to like a pink, and like then purple is considered a neutral market. When they're seeing neutral markets and maybe slightly blue, it's the same places. You're seeing the Sunbelt states, Texas, Florida, the Carolinas down south, and in the Northeast, you're seeing like a lot of red, specifically, and Chicago's in the same boat, and then you're seeing red along the West Coast as well. So you can see there's different ways people are coming up with these numbers. They're not. It's not one formula is not the same as the others, and there's 5 observations I saw with Zillow's heat map I want to run down with you here. The first is directionally, Zillow got a lot right here, and they correctly identified many regional housing markets where buyers have gained the most leverage, particularly around the Gulf. And it also highlights areas where sellers have maintained some degree of control. I would say that's pretty accurate looking at that map there. And we're part of that map. The Greater Philadelphia's in there. But they might be overstating the Northeast and Midwest tightness in inventory. And while there's some relatively competitive markets in these regions, Zillow appears to exaggerate the strength of the seller conditions. Many of these markets feel more neutral or only slightly tilted towards sellers, not full-blown strong seller markets. So you've got listings on the market right now. We're seeing what are you seeing in terms of seller strength, both in the suburbs and maybe in the city of Philadelphia?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say in the suburbs, it also depends on where they priced the home at, like how it was positioned when it hit the market.
Yep.
Because I would argue, there's some that while they did end up accepting an offer below where we were listed at, maybe with some of those terms in there that buyers are looking for, what they got for it really was the market value of the home. But it wasn't necessarily like fierce competition to get it there. And that all kind of comes with, where things are listed at. But yeah, I think there's also others that are moving quickly. It kind of depends. There's so many little factors that go into each one.
It's really well said, because you think about it. I mean, price point's a big deal, right? Like if you're above a certain number, you're just going to have less buyers. That's just the reality of it. And you talked about pricing, and there's anyone that says they haven't taken an overpriced listing, they probably haven't taken many listings.
Right.
Would be my guess. And seller expectations right now, this is according to a survey that just came out. 81% believe they're going to get their asking price or more. And this is as of like last month, what we're seeing right now is that number's come down a little bit. If you look at average list to sales price ratio, and let's look at the suburban market because Philadelphia is a little softer, that number was all above 100% last year. Now it's at like 99.5 to 100.3. So it's not a big decline, but it's a little bit of it's a shift for sure. And this is where this data can be kind of misleading. I do agree. I think it's still a seller friendly market in the suburban Philadelphia specifically. I think the city is going to be a little different depending on what you're offering. The condo market's a lot softer, as an example, versus a single family home market or a row home or a townhome. And this is also where I think we're getting into a time of the year where you've got to have some tougher conversations with your sellers, and you have to let them know that. I mean, I just hung up with somebody. It's been on the market 5 days, and they're like, "All right, well, we're not nervous yet." And I said, "Good. The average time on market's about 22 days right now. We shouldn't be nervous." Are you finding you're having to have those same kind of conversations? Tell me more about what seller expectations are versus what's actually happening.
Yeah. So I think, as you want to kind of like in advance lead what could come up and what will happen as these different like weeks pass, right? So I don't think that like panicking and immediately making huge adjustments is in most cases the right move. I mean, I think that in many cases like it can take a little bit, so you want to be aware of what the average days on market is, so that you kind of can kind of keep track of that. And then you want to point to feedback. So if you're consistently getting like the same objection for what an issue is, we need to talk about that. And is there a way to tackle it? If you're still getting showings, but you're not getting offers, keep tabs on that. And then if showings start to dwindle, that's another thing. So you want to kind of prep your client for what happens in each of those scenarios, and like, no, let's not make any panicked rush decisions. But when we touch base next week, let's, we're going to recap on this, and then kind of telling them like at that point, these could be our options. And then when that next week comes, review the options again and kind of see where they're at.
I love that you're talking about reviewing options, because no one wants to feel like boxed into a corner. I mean, imagine if someone came up to you and Eric and they're like, "All right, this is the only option that you have." I mean, it's probably not going to feel great, right? And one option is always not selling the house. And that's what a lot of people don't get. You talked about the feedback you can't change there. Could you elaborate a little bit? Because I think a lot of people, they say things like, "Oh, well, they can always update these things, or they can do this stuff." That doesn't always make sense. So what are some examples of the feedback that you feel is more of a price solve versus something we can change?
Yeah. So I can say I've got one right now where in more than one, it's a property that is going to be perfect for somebody, but not for everybody, and the feedback that we got from two more serious people that had maybe even been through more than one time was they had some concerns with the basement. We'd had the conversation of, let's do an inspection. Like, we're happy to, we want you to find out. But sometimes people are a little nervous to like make that leap. So when we got that feedback a couple times, we kind of had the conversation leading up for probably about 2 weeks. And then now like we're going to bring somebody in to look at the basement so that we can verify and then kind of overcome that hurdle, whether it's, hey, everything's fine. Here's the documentation to show that, or if we need to tackle an issue.
Got it. And I think
that what you meant?
Yeah, well, that's a great option. Like location, like if they don't like the road, can't do anything about that.
Right.
So I think you got to look at the things you can control and can't control. And really what buyers, when they look at a home, there's 4 things. There's price and condition, which you can at least try to change the price. Doesn't mean you're always going to get it. You can negotiate that. Condition can be upgraded over time. So those are things that are fixable but when it comes to floor plan and location, well, I mean, you went through a pretty heavy house renovation. Did you make some like floor plan adjustments to the property?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was, I mean, now you planned to renovate. It was a different kind of buy for a lot of people, but there's a lot of money involved in that. And so floor plan takes a significant way to do that. And then you also have location. You can't change that. So That's the kind of stuff you need to be aware of seeing this data here. So again, it's another reason why you got to be careful what you look at with these national one size fits all, even when they take the whole region, because I mean, you go from one town to the other. I mean, markets can change pretty dramatically. So um, now, I guess the next question I have for you is, they do this like monthly tracker, and they talk about what's going on in the market, and this is all on Resi Club, and they talk about the year over year change in pricing. I mean, and number of sales, and yeah, I think we're back to a normal sort of market here. I don't know if you're seeing the same thing, where homes are appreciation maybe 2, 3, 4% year over year. And it's caused a lot of folks to think about getting back into the market, specifically millennials. And, I mean, you look at some of the data out there right now, the average age of a first time home buyer was 38 years old last year. Is that pretty wild to you?
Yeah.
And it was only 33 a couple years ago. I mean, 5 years ago. I mean, it's crazy to think what was going on 5 years ago. But that's
Right.
a time when they have a lot of changes in their lives, whether it's family formation, kids, those sort of things. So, what we're seeing here is that this realtor.com report talks about millennials are showing more interest in buying homes than they were just 6 months ago, but they're only cautiously stepping back into the market. 23% of millennials say they plan to buy a home in the next 6 months, up from 15%. Um, what I mean, and rates are the sticking point. Locked in sellers are hesitating. What do you do to see if someone's going to be, ready for a move? I mean, it's not so much if you're going to work with them, but if they're in the right mind space to make a move. How do you talk to them? How do you guide them through the process? Because this is a big decision, and we're seeing this has been a big kind of logjam in the market with the average first time home buyer age.
I mean, I think the biggest thing first is just like motivation. Like what is the reason for the move? What does it do for you? What does not moving do for you? Because that's gonna kind of figure out a lot. And it's also gonna help you guide them for maybe opening up different options for them, whether that's, figuring out a way to make pricing work, or looking at something that maybe like condition isn't quite where you want it to be, but it can get there, and kind of like working around things that way. And then also, if there is a timeline there for when they need to move and why they need to hit that timeline, really making sure to be bringing them options and like keeping them motivated and keeping them going. Because if you check out for a couple weeks, it can, that's lost time. And it can be hard to get that back.
I love what you're talking about there, because these are basically, we want to find people that are going to move because they need to, right? That's what we're talking about here. And I think a lot of times buyers, they get hung up on like rates or some of these headlines they're seeing. Some other questions you can ask are, what if we were able to bring the value down enough where the payment was more important than the rate? So, because you can negotiate now with some folks, that hasn't always been the case. What if the rate didn't come down? How long would you wait? I mean, that's because some people may say, "Oh, I'll wait 6 months." Well, I don't think there's really a point to that in a lot of cases. The third is, what about the rate being a certain number is important? Is it the monthly payment, or is it just that you want a lower rate to be able to say you have a lower rate? And then when you dig into these things, what would it take for you not to buy a home in the current climate? Like, the more you talk to people and ask questions, you're going to be able to help them decide if moving's right for them or not. Because there's always a reason not to make a move. I think that's pretty clear. Regarding rates, 1 in 3 Americans say they've delayed a purchase due to current mortgage rates. Are you feeling that's pretty accurate right now based on this Realtor.com survey?
I don't know that I would agree with that.
Okay.
I think we've been pretty steady here for a little bit. So I think for people that are like still out looking, so like the rates going up could have been something that a while back made some people kind of fall off and still not come back to. People who have been looking and, have continued to look over the last few months with rates being around, where they've been, give or take a little bit, but I would say consistently in the same like chunk. I don't think the rate's the reason.
Well, and the rate may be the reason they're saying,
Sure.
But sometimes there's something else going on here, and let's say it is the reason, right? I mean, that's that's a big number. And for younger home buyers, it's even worse. Over half of Gen Z and millennials said they've postponed buying because of rates. Only 2% would even consider buying if rates go above 6%. I mean, I don't see how this data matches up. And 63% are holding out for rates to dip below 5% before they'll move forward. I mean, good luck with that. Yeah, and that's my point here is that if you look at what the predictions are, this article came out the end of over the weekend that mortgage rates have basically been unfazed by these crazy economic headlines that we're seeing, whether it's tariffs or the trade war or President Trump and FHFA Chairman Bill Pulte telling the Fed to slash rates. I mean, none of this is doing anything to actual mortgage rates. What's going to be important is the jobs report that comes out this week. And if jobs reports continue to defy the odds and continue to come in hot and high and above expectation, we're not going to see rates come down at all.
Right. Well, and I think it depends also on like what your current living situation is. So like, let's say that you're living at home and you're not paying any rent there and you're actually saving that money and you're able to, and that's great. But then there's like the mental aspect of it of like, are you happy there? Like where are you, like, there's a certain like point where that like makes sense and it doesn't make sense. Or if you're renting, what is your rent payment? Because like your rent payment could be more or equal to your mortgage payment easily. So then if it's just a matter of like down payment, that is the real obstacle there, figuring out, what we can do about that. Connecting them with a lender, finding out different programs that they may qualify for. I think potentially reaching out for like a gift from a family member, which certainly is not an option for everybody, but happens more than you would maybe think. So I guess kind of pinpointing what is the actual obstacle there and then figuring out, is it something you can overcome or isn't it?
I think that's a great way to look at it, because once you get into the home and you're going to be there a long period of time, I mean, a lot of living situation problems go away. I mean, you think of like, two kids sharing a room, right? Or you're not in the neighborhood or the school district that you want to be in. And it's clear to me these rates are going to be what we see for a while now. I mean, the jobs report is going to be critical. I don't want to make any guesses on that. I don't know enough about that, but that's going to tell us what happens next here. Jobs and inflation are the hot button issues. And on top of that, we have the Federal Reserve president's going to, he spoke this week, and this jobs report is just so critical right now that's going to tell us what happens. I mean, last week we got a subdued PCE inflation report recorded at 2.1%, but that didn't even prompt a reaction, and 2% was the target the entire time. So it's all about the jobs right now. I think that's pretty clear. So where I want to kind of end this segment with, and I think a lot of agents and a lot of home buyers may need to wake up here. The last 6 months are not going to be reflective of the next 6 months. So you've been through some seasonal markets. I mean, we're past Memorial Day. Summertime is typically like winning season, if you want to call it that, where a lot of people will continue to work even though they're going on vacation and doing other stuff. And there's still business to be done. But it's not going to be like this frothy, like, hey, someone came in, they want to go look at homes, they're buying something pretty quickly. You've been through enough of these now, Sarah. So, I mean, looking at what advice do you have for home buyers and maybe the opportunity that's out there for people that missed out on something in the spring? And then we can talk about pricing advice for home sellers.
I think the first thing is take yourself out of the equation in like the sense of like, oh, I want this to close because I want this deal to go through, like focus on like, what is their motivation? What makes sense for them? And can you find the right fit and the right piece to kind of pull it together? And then continue to stay in touch in case if like something on their end changes. And never expect, even when somebody calls it, it is like, I'm buying this week. Don't believe it. I don't want to say like that's not in a negative way, just like amazing if that comes together, but like just be there to kind of like help them through it, and don't expect quick results.
When you detach from the outcome as an agent, you do your client a great service, because so many agents have commission breath. They prioritize, I got to close the sale for me, for my family, for my household, instead of sometimes you got to give advice that doesn't help your income. Like,
Right. And
we need to blow out of this deal.
Yeah.
Right?
And sometimes the advice is let's terminate, or you know what? You do have a couple more months and let's not rush into something. And none of these are the home that checks enough of the boxes to move forward with. Let's do plan B for a little bit and wait. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's, sometimes that's the best solution.
Well, and if you're a strong agent, what you're doing is you're not relying on these like one or two people. Like, you're constantly bringing in new business. There's some people that say, I work by referral only. Well, so I got two groups here, Sarah. Tell me which one's bigger, the people you know or the people you don't know?
People you don't know.
Yeah, of course. Right. Of course, that's the group. Right. It's not like, so if you're not constantly like having high level conversations as an agent, then you find yourself having that commission breath and getting stressed out when a sale doesn't work. But the best spot to be in, and you and I just went through this, there was something that went a little sideways. If that deal closed or not, our lives aren't changing, fortunately. Now, the sellers and the buyers would have, and that's a different situation. We had to fight for that, but you got to remove yourself from the equation, like you said. And great agents are constantly having new people that they're talking to, and then hopefully they move them to the group of people they know, and then they grow their database and their whole business. So that's really, really critical. So for buyers, I'd be looking at, like, I see some opportunity right now for the people that lost out. If you see a home that's been like kind of on the market a couple weeks,
yep,
I'm going to take a look at that. If you're maybe worried it's priced too high, or maybe the photos aren't great. Any other opportunities you see for buyers in the market as we get into the summer season here? School's winding down. It's finally warm out. What would you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, right, like not being afraid to write an offer that works for you, if that's the offer that you can write. So like the only way that you 100% are not going to get a home as a buyer is if you don't try. And if you don't submit that offer. So, not being afraid to, as if it's your best foot forward, put it forward and see what comes out of it. Certainly paying attention to days on market for properties, and that's generally where you're going to find the most opportunity, and just continuing to send properties your clients' ways.
I love that. For sellers, you might want to adjust your expectations a little bit, because we are going to see traffic historically drop. In our market, it's around July 4th. Other places, it's Memorial Day. But July, I mean, kids are still in school. You have all that going on. So instead of going for that like aspirational number, feeling like you got 5% appreciation, 10% appreciation year over year or over the past few months, I wouldn't look at it that way. What I'd be looking at is pricing it at the last sale. I think that's going to be your best bet. If you look at the data, especially for suburban homes, well, homes are selling 99.4% to 100.6% of the asking price. That's down a little bit. So I'd be pricing at the comparables, because we are getting into a seasonal market here. And historically, a lot of people are going to be on vacation July and August. That's a real thing. So,
and depending on what type of property is that you're selling, if you're in a community where all of the homes are very similar for the most part, everyone's going to be looking at those comps. So if you price yourself way out of range there, anybody can see that.
yes.
If you've got, like, where I feel like it gets a little bit trickier is if your home really doesn't have like a lot of good solid comps for it, and there's more like wiggle room there.
Yeah.
But but when if you're in a community where like it's pretty clear where the number's at, other people see that too.
Buyers are way more sophisticated than people think. I mean, they go on, they look at, and if they have a good agent, their agent's bringing all that information. So you want to just be mindful that there's a little bit of a shift happening in the market right now, and time on market. Don't panic after the first week. I think that's really important. Yeah. So, all this noise out there, I don't know that the market's that different. This is a very normal market. It's actually that there's less competition for buyers. There's some opportunity, and it still is leaning on the seller side. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about the Wawa conglomerate, whatever. I don't even know how to what you qualify them as. They're selling a few sites. You got sheets coming in, but I want Sarah to think about, if you're a home buyer, what kind of businesses you want being built in your neighborhood, because it's usually a good indicator where values are going to go. So we're going to talk about that next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. The Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line. If you're thinking of becoming a real estate agent in the greater Philly area, I have a special offer day going
for
so
you.
far?
Oh, pretty good.
It's fucking exhausting. We got home.
Oh my gosh, I was so tired and so full.
I was full. Like, I ate a lot of. I usually don't eat that much food. It was good, but
oh my gosh, I got home and Eric was still getting Maddie like ready for bed.
Oh yeah, Brent's like.
And I walk in and Louis like runs up to me and he was like wet. And I was like, did it rain? And Eric was like, no. Lou got out, ran off, rolled in a dead snake, and was like covered in shit. And so he had to get hosed down. And then I could just like see it on his face. I was like, oh my gosh, it's been a night.
I mean, you got a lot of woods around where you live too. So like, yeah. I mean, we get a decent amount of wildlife too. We haven't had any snakes yet that I've seen.
We've actually this year we've seen like quite a few, like almost all dead, but like they're little. They're like little.
I mean, you got a fox around there killing snakes.
Yeah, we have a lot of foxes.
We have also have a lot.
Yeah.
You go to Ocean City, like they'll come out, at least on our beach, like from the dunes, and they'll be like over there.
Yeah.
People feed them all the time, and I'm like, they got like mange, and I'm like, oh god. I'm like, I called the city, and they're like, hey, we ain't doing anything about it. Sorry guys. I'm like, and I'm like, kids, don't go over there.
Yeah. You know what was crazy? So I never thought of like snakes in the city, right? Like I was always like, oh, like that's not a thing. I remember when we like still lived there, down along the like waterfront, there's like this one path, which there is like some like not woods, but like tall grasses and like there aren't like buildings right there. It was like the first warm day in spring, and we saw so many snakes, all like out like sunning on the like path that we were like walking on, and I was like, oh my god, there's city snakes. Gross.
Yeah, it was out of our old place. It was this new Y in Havertown. They built. It used to be a bubblegum factory, and there was this huge colony of rats living there. And we live in Ardmore, which is much closer. And like I'd be like up in the morning, like doing work at like the breakfast bar we had, and I would hear like stuff going on the walls. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like I figured it was just something. And I opened the garage and pulling stuff out, just like one smashed. And then I pulled a box, dead one. Like it's like this, it had like juice coming out. And I started dry heaving. Like I'm usually, man, I hate mice. We caught 35 mice in my parents' house the first year we lived there, and I was like 3, so I'm like scarred for life. But
yeah, that'll do it.
It was like,
yeah,
I get snakes like not horrible.
Oh, see, I'm like, I don't know.
I can't identify.
Yeah.
It's not like a rattlesnake. Like
well, yeah.
Cobra.
Yeah. Oh my god.
That's too funny. All right. Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Timon. We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we have got some convenience store gossip and news, but I think it's really relevant here because Wawa is definitely a part of the community, and we're going to talk about some new Wawas being built, selling a few sites, Sheetz making some moves in Chester County, and what it means for homeowners and housing in those neighborhoods. We're going to cover the new PA driving law in the next segment. I think it's going to affect a lot of real estate agents, and we've got some incredible new listings and open houses this weekend as well. So if you get some value out of this or you like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and if you want to schedule a call with Sarah from our team to talk about why you should be buying a home near a Wawa, you can do that with the link in the comments. So before we get into all this, so you're from Lancaster, so
yes.
that was like Sheetz territory up there, right?
Yeah, there are a lot of Sheetz.
So, what's your assessment? Like, I know this is a very heated battle for anyone that went to school like west of Chester County. I think that's kind of where they start. I mean, what's your just tell me about your observations here.
So, you mean like in terms of like what they offer, or
better, worse? Which one do you like? Because people are very passionate about these things.
So, I mean, I definitely would prefer Wawa.
Okay.
Sheetz, I think, has a lot, like everything's deep fried.
Okay.
I mean, like if you go to like their little like MTO screen, I feel like it's a lot like heavier fried stuff. Which I mean, I do like fried things. It's not that I'm like anti-fried stuff. Also, I guess like in Lancaster, we don't have there's like a Wawa out by like the outlets, but I don't think there's like a ton of Wawas in Lancaster. I guess the big competitor would be Turkey Hill.
Okay.
So, but it is interesting. There are quite a few locations where like Turkey Hills have been, that across the street Sheets has popped up.
Interesting. Well, I think this happens a lot, and I mean, especially like if you're in, and then there's like Royal Farms too, which is come to the area. But I've seen that happen like in Downingtown. There's like a Turkey Hill and like a Wawa right next to each other.
Mhm.
So this is where I wanted to go with this because what we're seeing is that there's a Chester County sheet store that's been proposed. This got announced about a month ago. It's right on East Lincoln Highway, Lancaster Avenue. It was an old Rite Aid, so obviously it's in Conn Township. So that's in a Coatesville School District. It's a 1.79 acre parcel. Gets a lot of traffic there. If you know where I'm talking about, it's kind of like right past the bypass. There's a Giant there. It's just west of Downingtown Borough. So that you see that stuff happen. They're going to have 12 gas pumps. It was going to be a 6,139 square foot convenience store, 45 parking spaces. And they're supposed to be opening September 1st of 2026, which, I mean, probably takes a long time to build these things. They're also looking at another location in Montgomery County at the intersection of like Ridge and Swamp Pikes. That's up in like the Collegeville, Perkiomen area. Um, and then the flip side is Wawa has looked to open 40 stores across York, Dauphin, Cumberland, Franklin, Union, Lycoming, and Northumberland counties. So when you see this stuff happen, because this isn't the only one, there's there's a Wawa set to open in where like the Drexel Line Town Center is in Drexel Hill.
Yeah.
So my grandmother lived in Drexel Hill, so I know this. It was the old Drexel Line before they made it into a ShopRite, and they're supposed to be opening a Wawa there. I'm surprised there hasn't been a Wawa in that neck of the woods. So when you see these sort of things pop up, I mean, what does that tell you with housing, home values? What does it mean for homeowners? Because I think there's something to be said for this kind of development. But I'm curious if you ever pay attention to that stuff, or maybe your clients even ask you about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you are like, depending on where you are, you like expect one to be close by. So if
Hmm.
there isn't, it's like, oh, what?
Yeah.
You know? So I think like having them close by is a positive. I think like I think it is kind of more of a Northeast thing. I don't know, maybe that like our gas stations are also like places that people get meals and lunch
Okay.
and dinner, and like with the little like MTO, like it's not just like candy bars
Hmm.
and chips.
Yeah. Beef jerky.
And I feel like people are so busy these days that like that's when you're running around with like kids in between sports activities and you've had a later meeting or whatever, like having something quick close by that you can run in and just like order on the screen and get out is a plus. Plus everybody, I mean, for the most part, like you want to be near a gas station for your car. And yeah, I feel like and usually like around like some of these different gas stations, there's like other things as well.
Hmm.
Like you'll have your like one off that's all by itself, but I feel like there's usually some other stuff close by too.
Well, that's a great point because I mean, you look at the Drexel Hill, right? This is right off like State Road and Township Line. So they're going to be putting the Wawa in there. There's a Jersey Mike's that's going in. They just built a new bank there. They have a future development site that's going to be that's targeted in this shopping center. And this place has been there for decades, and it used to be the old like Drexel Line. And we would go there. My grandmother lived not too far from there. But I think that shows you that there's obviously enough people living there to support these kind of businesses. But the flip side is like there's other businesses that I think indicate might be a good place to invest in when it comes to housing. Like you ever see when like a Whole Foods gets built somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
Like that to me is you start to see these things happen, and like a Wawa gets built. You see some of these downtown areas. Like I mean, Phoenixville Borough is a great example. I grew up right outside Phoenixville. It did not look like the way it does now when I lived there in the 80s and 90s. And you see these businesses come in. They come there because they do studies and make sure they can be profitable. So a place like Whole Foods, especially, like when they're building a new Whole Foods somewhere, I'd be paying attention. The Newtown Square one's an example.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing in that shopping center right on Westchester Pike forever. And then all of a sudden, all these people came out of nowhere and they're going to Whole Foods all the time. And then they have restaurants opening there. And when you see this stuff happen, I'd be paying attention as a home buyer or a home seller. And there's actually some data behind this, Sarah, believe it or not.
I bet there is.
Surprise, surprise. So when you look at, there was a study to Wawa's model that's been done by a couple different people. The fresh food 24/7 aligns with convenience stores like 7-Eleven, suggesting similar impacts. And in suburban U.S. settings, Wawa may boost values in middle or working class neighborhoods, but maybe has like a negative effect on some of the higher end. So you see a Wawa going into Drexel Hill or going into Downingtown and like the Coatesville area. I think that makes a lot of sense. Like you wouldn't expect it to be, I don't like on Rittenhouse Square, right? There's not a Wawa in the
Right.
middle of Rittenhouse Square. There's not a, but now in suburban locations are a little different. There's another study. It's called the Atlanta Machine Learning Study, and it values how convenience stores within 1 mile can enhance predicted home values, but the effect diminishes at 5 miles. So it's really like what's happening in that mile radius. That was pretty interesting because 5 miles is kind of far away when you think about it. Maybe not in Lancaster, but maybe some other places, right? So I mean, was that like a to give some, because Lancaster's a little bit of a spread out area compared to where we are. Was that like a normal drive? Just like what was the average drive time if you were going somewhere when you were growing up there?
Where I grew up, you were probably 10 minutes to
Okay.
the like grocery store.
So that's probably
and
not 5 miles. That's probably a little less.
Yeah.
Unless you're going like 60 miles an hour.
Right. But there were parts, but like Lancaster County is huge.
Mhm.
So there's certainly other areas where you could easily be well beyond that to get to anything, or to get to anything like bigger,
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, it's certainly more spread out.
And that was kind of my point. I think it depends. Like, you get to parts of Chester County, it's a little more spread out there, like Downingtown versus Wayne or Lower Marion or places like that, or even Media. So then we looked at, and I think this is where homeowners and home sellers can get excited about stuff, is that there's a very clear type of store that indicates a positive balance in home values. Upscale grocery stores like a Trader Joe's, a Whole Foods, a Wegmans. We've seen a lot of those get built recently. I mean, just think about the Wegmans in like Malvern or King of Prussia. I mean, they're always packed. Do you go to those stores? You don't live far from there.
Yep, I'm like 3 minutes from Wegmans.
Yeah, so that's incredible.
I was there today.
Awesome. Well, I mean, then they have like the cafe, and you can kind of hang out there, and that's obviously that's the Whole Foods has kind of the same thing. Trader Joe's not so much. Typically, it's an economic signal that indicates a strong local economy. There's some walkability there, and they tend to attract affluent, educated buyers. So, I mean, anytime you see an upscale grocery store, they're building one, that may be a time where you want to think about a community. The second one are coffee shops, and they mentioned like local high-end coffee shops or Starbucks. And I mean, are you seeing that as well? Like, do you see that kind of trend happen when you see a Starbucks go in? It's like, oh, this is actually good news for the neighborhood.
Yeah, I think, and it's interesting because I agree with that. Either Starbucks or certainly like high-end local, as opposed to like Dunkin' Donuts.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and nothing wrong with Dunkin' Donuts, no. But we're talking about indicators for housing, and there was actually a Zillow and Redfin analysis that showed that homes within a half mile of a Starbucks appreciated 0.5% to 1% faster annually than those without, with a cumulative 5 to 7% premium over a decade in urban and suburban markets. So they just built like a new Starbucks down in like Brookhaven. Like I think that's really the one in Broomall that was not there, right on Lancaster or not Westchester Pike. You see that stuff happen. That's certainly good. And again, it's the same thing. It's like an indicator of gentrification. There's not a lot of negatives that come along with that. What do you think about specialty retail, like an Apple Store, an REI, a Nordstrom, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, like, well, I'm just thinking of like the Wegmans town center near me. You've got all of those, So I think they often will kind of come along with each other.
You're right. I mean, and you look at like the King of Prussia town center. I think I mean there's an Apple Store in Suburban Square. That's like I'm very happy about that because if I got to get a new phone, I have to go to the mall, which is amazing. But like they're all kind of the same sort of places, and again, they're like an economic catalyst. They attract more like retail and dining. You'll often see like a lot of restaurants open around those places. Convenience stores are on the list. We just talked about those. So like a Wawa or a Sheetz. I mean, you mentioned Turkey Hill. The last one, this was interesting. Big box retail, specifically like a Target or a Costco or a Walmart.
Yeah.
So according to NAR, homes near Target stores in suburban areas showed a 3 to 5% value premium within 1 mile, attributed to convenience and the store's appeal to mid and upper middle class buyers.
Yeah.
So I think the point is when you see this stuff happen, like a Wawa's a good, and Wawa's kind of like the early adopter. I think
Right.
that's going to be like the first one that comes out because everyone needs gas and the food there. But then when you start to see some of these other types of places get built, I'd be keeping my eyes on those neighborhoods. It's a really great way to look at it. It's not so much about the Wawas and all those things, although people will like die over the Wawa Sheets debate around here. It's pretty serious. So
well, it's funny when somebody comes from out of the area and they have like no idea what Wawa is, and they're like, "Oh, Wawa."
Yeah. I've heard the same thing.
Yeah.
So that's great, awesome. So I mean, I do. So do you ever share this stuff with buyers, or do you have any advice for people that see these things like they're kind of considering a neighborhood? I mean, what would you do to kind of help them understand what amenities are out there, because that's really what they're buying into is the community.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it depends a little bit on the buyer and like because that's like another level of kind of like consideration, right? So I think for that to factor in, you would have to, a couple other things would have to be happening like simultaneously for it to be to really hold a lot of weight in the equation, right? So, if you would kind of, I think, need to have either like quite a few different options that work for you. I feel like your budget would need to be a little bit more on the higher end to kind of be like thinking about that as a piece for like just future sales and for appreciation versus like the motivation to just like, we need to make a move and this is what we need out of our next house. Like that's great if you can like factor those things in. I think it's certainly something where if a home pops up that is right, and then you can also point to that, that's amazing. I think you'd have to be pretty long-term to maybe be looking at an area where like, hey, this is all planning on coming. Cause also like things can change for like or like it can take years and years and years for some of these things to come together.
We're talking about some of these not happening until September of next year. That's more than 12 months away.
Well, I was thinking too, like, well, this might be a little bit different in like the city, but not far from where I used to live, there was talk of a Target, like not a huge one, but like a smaller Target for
a mini Target.
Yeah, like a little mini Target for years and years and years. And then I don't think it actually ever ended up happening. But so you want to like, you don't want that to be the sole reason you go somewhere and then have like the whole plan like not come together.
Well, and this is why I'm a big believer that when you're considering buying a property, if you don't know the neighborhood or you're unsure, you want to drive around the neighborhood and not just like the streets around there. Spend like a half a day, drive around, maybe grab some lunch, see what's going on. Because if you're unsure, this is a big decision, and it's a skip. A lot of buyers want to. It's a step. A lot of buyers want to skip. Excuse me. Driving around the neighborhood is one of the best pieces of advice your agent can give you, because it's going to really give you a good sense of what's going on, and what the other homeowners are like, and kind of see the people there, and that way you can get a feel that you're going to be comfortable with, not anybody else. But this stuff does matter. I mean, and if there's development happening, that means it's a good place you can live long term. Remember, we're playing the long game here, Sarah. Yep. This isn't like a 2-year hold.
Yep.
So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to be talking about this new driving law and our open houses and new listings hitting the market this weekend. That'll be next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
Deal with all the red tape when getting your mortgage from a big or online bank. At Mortgage America, we have access to big bank money, but with the personalized and detailed service of a local bank.
I'm trying to go more local with the stuff, like instead of this like real estate. I know you love cooperation.
And first-time home buyer programs. Pre-approval is free, no costs or commitments. For more information, visit our website at mymortgageamerica.com or give us a call at 610-439-8000.
So there's Ashley, Marion, Centennial, Indian, and 112 Harvard. I got them on. We can share my screen for you.
Loans that fit nearly any unique home buying situation, including first-time buyer options, low to no down payment options, and
And Louis rolled a dead snake. It's rough.
Pre-approval now.
Oh, man.
It's pretty great. You were the one that were at dinner, though, instead of having to deal
I
with
know.
that.
I didn't have to deal with any of it.
Bryn, like, will not stop, like, sleeping in her room. Like, she's, like, really scared. And, like, her room's, like, at the end of the hall. And I'm just like, she's in the room. I want to watch, like, I don't know, like, The Penguin on HBO or something. You can't watch any of this stuff. And it's,
Right.
all I'm going to do is lay down. She's
Right.
home, and I'm like, oh, my God. Like, the Righteous Gemstones. You can't watch that in front of
Oh
her.
my God, I love the Righteous Gemstones.
Incredible show, but...
We're now on season
All right.
4.
Welcome back to Toole Time, Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Timon. We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line, and we are talking about the new PA driving law that's going to be in effect in 2 days here, and the listings and open houses we have coming to the market this week. So if you get some value out of this, subscribe to the channel. You want to talk to Sarah about how you can get into any of these open houses, you can do that with the link in the comments. I want to hit on this new driving law real quickly. Quick reaction. Real estate agents need to get their act together here with this new driving law. I don't know if you've been paying attention to this. So Pennsylvania has a handheld device ban for drivers taking effect on June 5th. Means, and there was an accident outside my house where this happened yesterday. Like,
wow.
I can maybe explain off the air here to you. This legislation is taking effect on Thursday, and it was named after a 21-year-old college senior who was killed by a distracted driver in 2010. So I can certainly understand that. And it's basically you can't be holding your phone, scrolling, checking email, texting. I think real estate agents need to get their act together when they're driving, or maybe learn how to use voice command. What do you think about all this, Sarah?
I'm surprised that wasn't already
It's a good point.
A law. Because I mean, I feel like many other states, that's a thing, right?
I would imagine, yes. It's only a $50 fine, but what I can tell you is people like do not pay attention. Like, I mean, I've seen it happen where they're like this driving, and it's really a problem. Now, I think it's also important for real estate agents. I mean, real estate agents are constantly testing and driving. I don't care what anyone says.
Oh, yeah.
And unless you're investing in some technology, like where we use House Whisperer, where you can actually call an AI assistant that will update your CRM for you or help you with things like that, you're going to be in a lot of trouble here. I think voice activation would be smart, but police are going to be actively looking for this behavior.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's one of those things where, while it may for like in the moment be like, I don't want to say, well, yeah, I guess like inconvenient, but like it's not safe to be doing that. So I think the only way to enforce it is to put laws in place and to have them be enforced. And, safety should and this is coming from somebody that I know. I've been a distracted driver. You know what I mean? Like, absolutely.
I think any real estate agent who says they're not, they're lying.
100%. And, but like your first thing when driving should be driving and anything else should come second. And, I think that the only way to, I hope this gets the point across, and I hope it makes me do it.
I hope so too. I don't want to see anything happen to you, Sarah. And I think that's not good for anybody. And that's why, I mean, there are a lot of people don't realize how to use like the voice to text, like, hey, Siri, do this. Hey, Siri, do that. I think that your phone's a lot more functional than you realize.
And most cars now, you are like, at least like, I love making phone calls in the car. You know what I mean? And it's going through the like Bluetooth or whatever. Like, it's not, like, I don't think talking on the phone equals distracted drive it. Like, and that's not what this is.
They're talking about looking at the screen.
Right. So like you can still be productive, like on those, like as you're in between things, as you need to get things done. You just have to do it smartly. And if there's like a document that you need to like pull up or whatever, like you have to pull over.
I think that's the best advice. And again, there's a lot of AI options out there. I know our team's testing House Whisperer. You can call the assistant to take the notes, which is really great because when you're getting into like a CRM or something, that's not as simple as like, hey, update this or do that. There's another app involved. So that's a great point. So so real estate agents, be safe out there. Let's talk about these listings. We got 3 incredible listings coming to the market, Sarah. The first one, you've been in this home. 3671 Marion Drive in Garnet Valley. It's listed at $775. It's 2,742 square feet. It's an as-is sale. Needs a little bit of work. What should we know about this property, Sarah? It's coming to the market on Friday.
This is going to be a very cool property for somebody who wants to make the finishing touches for themselves. They're like, it needs a kitchen. It needs like, there's like finishes that need to be put in, but honestly, where it is right now, it's the fun stuff that is left to do. Like you're doing
Very
like,
cool.
because like those are the fun things to pick and to do. So you've got an opportunity to kind of make it your own without having to do all the demo and all of the work. It's just kind of like putting it back together, and it's a great neighborhood.
And that, I mean, that's a pretty incredible place. I mean, it's 2,742 square feet, needs work, 775. It's probably $1 million all day when it's done.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you've been in there, you know the story. That's in Bethel Township. That's by appointment only. So you want to see that one, click on the link, talk to Sarah. She'll get you in there. Next property, 1019 Ashley Road. This backs up to open space across from the West Town School. It's going to be open on Saturday and Sunday, 875,000, 3 beds, 3.5 baths. 3,053 square feet. This backyard is unbelievable. Backs up to the Chester Creek. It's got a 1.1 acre lot, in-ground pool that'll be open 12 to 2 Saturday and Sunday. 1019 Ashley Road in Westchester. And the last property, 383 Centennial Street in Collegeville. This is 3,130 square feet, asking price of $749,900. It's a 4-bed, 2.5 bath property on a half acre. Beautiful property. Amy Q's the listing agent. She said it's a beaut if you ever seen National Lampoons. That's so I would check that one out. We can get you in there, but that's by appointment only. Except on Saturday, 1 to 3, there's an open house on Saturday, June the 7th. We got 2 other quick open houses here. The first one is going to be at 16 Indian Way in Malvern. This is an 8,200 square foot home. Massive property, $2.25 million. That's going to be open on... Should have the date here.
Saturday, 11 to 1.
Saturday, 11 to 1. The last one we got for you this weekend, 112 Harvard Drive in Trapp. It's a excellent, beautiful end unit townhome, 500,000, 12 to 2 on the 7th. A lot of great opportunities. Get in touch. Click on the link. You want to follow Sarah? You can follow her at Ty_Ty Time. You can follow me at TomToole3RD, both on Instagram. And we'll catch you next week on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.